What is up, Chop Shop gang? The Houston Rockets have lost. We lost finally after winning a bunch of games. We lost to the Sacramento Kings in a game where our coach crashed out, our starting center crashed out, Tari Eason crashed out. It was definitely a crash out game. The game was ugly. It was off tilt. It felt uncomfortable. If you watched it, it just didn't feel right. There was something off about that game from start to finish. And when it comes down to it, the Kings just whooped our butts, bro. That's pretty much what it comes down to. They were the better team, despite the referees. And I usually don't complain about refs, but that was some of the worst reffing that I've seen. And it seems like this is just me. It seems like there is something against the Rockets. I don't think it has to do with our personalities per se, but there has to be word about our play style and how physical we play defense, being such a really, really elite defense. I'm not sure if other teams are starting to send messages to the league that the Rockets played a little rough, but it seems like it's having a rebound effect on how they're calling the game when we're playing defense, because we get a lot of dumb fouls called against us, whereas our opponents are able to maul our players without any recourse or any accountability. So that can be frustrating, and it reflected in this game. I think the frustrations boiled over. You saw that with Ime. He was loading up. I could see it coming from a mile away. He was loading up, and that Şengün play that Sabonis fouled him about 3 times that ended up pushing him in the back, and they didn't call nothing. I think that pushed Ime over the edge and kind of set up the whole kind of chaos that we saw. And most of us shut out the game from there. We were done. But if you actually look at the basketball, the Kings whooped our butts. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. You guys know my analogy of the type of teams that the Rockets play. They are either going to be 2 types of teams. Well, 3 types. You got the run the ball teams, right? These are heavy pick and roll. We're going to try to ISO or pick and roll you to death. Those are your run the balls. Those are your Dallases. Those are your Phoenixes a little bit. Some of these teams that are heavy in that type of play style, I think we usually fare well against them. We have the athletes to match up. We want you to get into pick and roll so we can mix up coverages against you and force you to do some things you don't want to do. We're going to pre-switch on the weak side, so you're trying to hunt mismatches on our center. By the time you get to them, it's 8 seconds left, and now you're isolating on a center that just knows that you're either going to shoot it or you're going to drive into a crowd of guys loaded for you. So that's easy for us to do, right? Middle teams are the balanced teams. They like to run the ball. So football analogy, once again, these are teams that like to run the ball and pass. That means they can do both. They can get into pick and roll. They can do some motion. They can do, different things and keep you off balance. These teams are coin flips for us as to how we're going to defend on that given day. And these are teams like OKC, right? Very diverse in their offense. They can play multiple styles. They can ISO you to death. They can pick and roll you to death. They can motion you to death. They can cut on you to death. Those teams are dangerous. Those type of balanced teams are dangerous in the playoff setting. Regular season, coin flip. It might be one of your guys gets hot. Somebody plays, has a really good game, and you're able to beat them. The third type of team is the teams they're air raid teams. I call them they like to pass the ball. Texas Tech, right? Circa 2000, the mid 2000 teens with Texas Tech, the early 2000s, air raider, Hawaii from back in the day. All these teams, Houston from back in the day, with Keenum, we're going to throw for 5,000 yards. That's just what we're going to do. These teams are your motion heavy teams that constantly move. They constantly cut. They constantly put you in a bind. And it's not really about being physical. And I think that was the problem with the Rockets. Our style of defense is really built upon a foundation of physicality, imposing our wills, being stronger. We're going to out-tough you. Whereas those teams that play that style, and there's only a few of them in the NBA that really commit to that, it's Kings, Warriors, Spurs, but Spurs, they don't have the dogs to really run that race. And Denver. Denver can do multiple styles, but I would consider them one of those teams, right? These are the teams that they put so much mental pressure on you to guard that physicality is almost neutralized. Because, in fact, it's almost like jiu-jitsu. They use your physicality and aggressiveness against you. Case in point, a lot of the actions they were running last night, they were banking on us being overly eager to help and to switch, right? Some of the actions they would run is they'd have DeRozan come from the corners, cut across to the flash over to the middle of the paint. Once he gets in the paint, there's a screen set for him to get there, right? And then you're put in a bind where either you're going to help with the screen. So if your man is setting a screen, so you're Şengün, Sabonis comes and sets a screen for DeRozan's man, whoever it is. That screen is going to take a second to get over. And, DeRozan is a cold mid-range shooter. And once he gets that screen, all he needs is a little pocket, and that's a layup for him, right? So what do you do if you're a team, right? You're going to want to step up. The moment you step up, Sabonis slips, right? So not only is the person trailing the screen trying to fight over to get to DeRozan to stop him from shooting the jumper, your big man is caught in the middle trying to make sure that DeRozan doesn't get a clear jumper and get a layup, and Sabonis slips and he gets a, dunk, or if it's whoever it is, it could be Sabonis, it could be any of their centers. They get lobs, they get dunks, they get whatever they want. Another thing the Kings did offensively is that they used alignment to really play with the Rockets. And I've seen this from them. There's another team. I think it's them. Maybe I know the Warriors do it to us as well. Pretty much all the motion teams, they use alignment against us. And this is one of their weapons. I want you guys to watch when teams run motion. It's not just, guys cutting off ball and constantly moving. They are actually setting up plays with the body movement. So on some of the plays, they would get into alignments where it starts off with both corners loaded, and then you'd have a cut or a flash across the middle. Another player will then cut across, and then once that screen comes and you have the cutting player, your help is already engaged, right? You really can't do much with the help because the player that was in the corner and the defender guarding him, that's usually going to be the person to help on the pick and roll. Once the center starts rolling, once again, pick and roll principles, the tag man is gone. There is no tag man. So they always get you into sets where they are taking away the tag using empty side pick and roll. Right, they're going to use whoever the empty side, whatever that empty side they want to run that pick and roll into. They're going to move that man from that region. Usually, it's going to be on an action that's not a dummy action, so they can cut across with Herder, who's a shooter, and then you have to chase him because he's a great shooter. So that takes away the help from that weak side corner, and then all of a sudden you get a pick and roll where the guy with the ball comes up. Şengün has to step up, even when we play high. Sabonis slips. He's running to the basket unbothered, getting a layup. Another thing they do, they like to pick on personnel, right? If they notice that you are able to still keep your corners filled, whether it's switching or whatever you want to do, they're going to run the pick and roll and align the players that they know suck at tagging the ball handler, the players that are terrible at taggers. These are your guards, usually Jalen. They picked on Reed Shepherd in this yesterday. Reed was damn near unplayable yesterday and had nothing to do with his shots, even though he wasn't hitting shots. They picked on him on defense. And it was because the help that he can't provide, he's too small to be your weak side help. Jalen struggles with that. So Reed was, that was damn near unplayable. So Mike Brown and his staff did a wonderful job kind of scheming up their offense to just attack our aggressiveness, because no matter what you did, you were screwed. If you try to be aggressive and switch out, they're slipping the screens. We've seen this before with the Warriors. If you try to say, I'm going to stay home, you're probably giving up a good shot to a good mid-range shooter or a good three-point shooter. And if you try to trap, they're going to go into 4 and 3. There's guys cutting. They have off-ball action that's real actions that they actually pass to. They're like kind of what we hope the Rockets would look like one day, right? They're like what we hope the Rockets to look like one day. On the flip side, with them as well, defensively, they ran a perfect game, able to kind of disrupt our pick and roll by blitzing our ball handlers on some plays. Some of the plays they play the drop. They really did it based on personnel. You would notice they blitzed Jalen more than Fred. They let Fred really shoot his 3-point shots, and they dare you to shoot. You heard Ryan talking about how many 3-pointers that they gave up throughout the season, that they conceded 3, but they packed the paint. They literally packed the paint. They will put 4 bodies in the paint, sometimes 5, and dare you to either hit corner threes or coming off the screen threes. And if I'm a coach and I'm playing the Rockets, why not? We're one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the NBA. Make them prove it. And that's what Mike Brown elected to do, and that gamble paid off. And if you look at, our shooting splits from that game, guys were missing a lot of good threes. We generated beautiful shots. It got so bad with the daring us to shoot threes that Amen became unplayable. And then you get into this cycle where you have, okay, so I was talking about Reed Shepherd being in the corner. Ideally, you want Amen and Tari as your wings on those corners. They're great on the weak side help. They can tag the rollers because they're big and strong. They can stop the center from getting to the basket with ease. They can contest, all that good stuff. But on the offensive end, when you're not hitting threes, when the spacing becomes an issue because teams are literally, the Kings were literally packing the paint, you start looking at a man like, oh boy, okay, this is what it's going to look like in the playoffs. So it was a great game, in my opinion. Like, these are the type of games that I love because they push you as a coach, as players, to me as somebody that enjoys watching the X and O's of basketball, to see, okay, this is where we're lacking. Because I put a tweet out saying that the Rockets basically, I think we've been a little bit kind of feeling ourselves a little bit as a team, and rightfully so. They've been, really beating a lot of good teams and beating up on some bad teams. But at the end of the day, it's good to get a good old-fashioned butt whooping to kind of knock you down a peg, to reassess what you're doing. And I think what we were getting away with, and this is kind of the issues with what you see when people, quote unquote, complain about the roster, is that there's almost a facade of, oh yeah, this team is good to go, everything is perfect because you're winning, but then the underlying issues are always there. And it's easy to ignore issues when you're being successful. Whereas a lot of the changes that people make to make themselves improve is when they lose, right? So this was good film for the Rockets to be able to use to kind of make changes to their offense and to their defense. Like, I love what the Kings do, right? They attack mismatches, but they do it within the flow of the offense while still keeping body movement and ball movement a priority. If they want to ISO you, they got their guys for ISO. For example, they like DeRozan getting into the post to get his mismatches, right? It's not random. He gets those shots, right? But you won't see Keegan Murray trying to get those shots because he knows his bread and butter is on the perimeter, right? Where he can come off of screens and shoot threes, right? Fox, pick and roll maestro. He likes to run his pick and rolls, get into his pockets in the mid range, gets his kick out threes. He hits those. You don't see Fox trying to, do something that's out of his wheelhouse. He's not shooting off of screens for that. Sabonis, screen and roll. Screen, if you get a mismatch, drive into the paint, body bruise, get your layup in. Their offense is, for us, and I think this was one of their better games, but when they're clicking, they're very efficient. Guys know their roles. Guys fit into the peg of everything. Everybody kind of functions within the role. Malik Monk is their sixth man. He knows he's the shooter guy. Come off screen, shoot, get downhill, shoot, take your shots when you get them. Get hot and be that streaky shooter that we need to kind of carry some of our bench units. That is hierarchy, and I think that's what the Rockets are lacking. We have guys trying to do everything. I've seen Jabari try to run pick and rolls. You got Şengün trying to come off screens. You got Jalen trying to post up players when he's smaller than them. You got Fred trying to drive into the paint when he knows he's not a drive threat. It's just everywhere. And to me, it was exposed in this game, a team that is playoff ready in the Kings, that have battle tested, that runs a style that is very hard for us to stick with, because when we go through our cold stretches, their offense, bad, good, or ugly, it's a machine. Remember what I always say, I'm process based, right? They may be having a terrible offensive season. At the end of the day, when you're a team that's a veteran, when you have a process, you got to stick to your process, because at some point it's going to shake loose. And for the Rockets, the process changes from game to game, from player to player. One game is Jalen drops 40, Şengün drops 30, Fred drops 40. Like, that is good. And that is, all that is great as you're coming up. But at some point in time, there has to be some measure of consistency from what you expect from your players from a night-to-night basis. And I think that the Kings game was a good wake-up call to show us that as good as we are, we still have a lot of ways to go. And in a playoff series of a 7-game series, if we meet the wrong team with the right coach, this could get ugly. And with the whole Ime and his temperament, I think personally, I don't like my coaches being like that. I like the for that game specifically. But I don't want us to get this reputation in the NBA as a team that's not able to control their temper. I like being measured. I'm a measured guy. It's okay to have one, maybe two crash outs on a team, bro. But it's not okay where every that's kind of encouraged. I think that we need to assign and delegate that to one player, and that's Dylan Brooks. He's already there, right? So let him be that guy. I don't want every player having a thing where they get kicked out of this game for that, because it just makes you look undisciplined sometimes. And I don't mind Ime doing that because I think he was trying to prove a point. I think generally those type of things are good in the long run because it makes the refs have to consider like, okay, let me make sure I'm on my P's and Q's calling this game right. But even some of the Dylan Brooks stuff over time, like, yeah, it's cool in the regular season. The problem with Dylan is that he doesn't know when to turn it off. And some of those antics do spill over into the postseason where it can hurt you. So I don't want that to happen. So I'd like to see them play more measured and under control. And if there's somebody that's going to be a crash out, let it be that person. But the rest of the team can't just adopt that point of view. Like, it's okay to be the bad boys and all that, but at the end of the day, you were getting your butt whooped on basketball, on the court, X and O's, all that stuff. I mean, the Rockets, they just took us out of our game. We only had 12 paint attempts. We went 1 for 12. Let me look at this. 1 for 12 in the paint against the Kings. 1 for 12. Usually we are getting at least 20-something attempts at the rim. We only went 1 for 12. 8.3% for their 8 for 17. That is schematics. They've shut off the paint, forced everybody to be a shooter, or to get, once you get in there, they're going to swarm you. And that's where we were complaining about the fouls, because when they swarm, guys are swiping, hitting, slapping, raking at people's eyes. So overall, I think just a great game for tape, a great game to make adjustments. It's good to see you're ugly on film because then you can make adjustments for it. And with the Warriors coming into town next week for the tournament, and then we're going to their town tomorrow, I'm really, really curious to see if Ime makes any adjustments. I don't know if they have enough time to do that, but expect more of the same. We saw what happened when the Warriors came to Houston. We were all over the place, right? We were getting cut on. We were giving up open threes, just like the Kings game. It is not because our players are bad or anything like that, or they just have more talent than us. That is a schematic thing. And the Rockets have this problem guarding teams like that because our identity is we want to get physical with you. We're going to load the box and put 8. We want to stop the run. We want you to run the ball because we can hit. We got big old linebackers, Dylan Brooks, Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, that want to get downhill and just thump and just hit and just make the game, just make it hard and gruesome. The problem is when teams come out there, 4 wide outs, they got 4 wide receivers. They want to throw the ball around the field. They running screens. They running just all sorts of, and we're trying to match up linebackers with slot receivers. It just doesn't work, and we got to figure something out. So I'm curious, and y'all know I'm gonna keep running with this football analogy stuff. I kind of like this because y'all know I played football. So if you don't know football, you're gonna learn something if you keep watching this channel. But all in all, I mean, not the end of the world. I mean, the guys have garnered enough grace for us not to flip out. I don't think I really saw a great flip out response from the fan base. Good game to get some film on. We'll see how they respond to it. I still think that the Rockets have a lot of room to improve as a team, and that game just proved it. And there's nothing wrong with that this early in the season. We'll see how they respond against the Warriors tomorrow at Golden State. So that'll be a great game. And then obviously everybody's talking about the in-season game we're hosting for them. Let's exercise some demons, man. I really want to put belt to ass for the Rockets. That's gonna for the Warriors. That's gonna be our goal. For this whole in-season tournament. If we beat the Warriors and we lose, I'm fine, bro. To me, that's our championship. I'm calling it. The Warriors game is the championship for the Houston Rockets. I don't care what nobody says. But appreciate y'all. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. Keep rocking with the Chop Shop, and we're gonna keep dropping that. Yeah.
DJ Candlestick. It's the Chop Not Slap Show.